Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to our cozy little corner of the internet. I'm AP Calculus and today I'll be reading chapter 6, the first half of Double Dare by ToadlilyAUs. This is chapter 6, Penny for Your Thoughts. Here is a summary. Dare meets the newest vigilante in town. Midoriya chooses a design for his hero costume. Hope you guys enjoy, it's really cool. Chapter 6. Dare has seen a great number of baffling and peculiar things in his many years as a vigilante, but some nights the universe still found ways to surprise him. This was one of those nights. His scanners had detected a pattern in the area, reports of low-level perps turning themselves into the police, with no memory of how or why they had gotten there. 5 of them so far, spread out across 3 separate stations in the past month. It wasn't a lot to go by, but Dare suspected there was a new player in town. There was a question of whether they were a new vigilante, such as himself, acting altruistically to help lighten the load of the local police force, or if this was a criminal simply eliminating the competition with scare tactics. Either way, Dare wanted to know. Based on what little information he had so far, they either had a mind control or memory altering quirk, possibly a combination of the two, and that was a dangerous power to have. If they were a bad guy, Dare wanted to take them down before they had the chance to get too big, and if they were a good guy, then he may be in need of Dare's help. By triangulating the areas of the cases so far, Dare determined which part of town was their usual stomping ground, and climbed onto the roof of a taller building to get the lay of the land. Less than 4 minutes later, Dare heard the sound of a window opening directly below him. He leaned back so they wouldn't be spotted by whoever was stargazing at midnight, and to his surprise, he saw a child crawl out of the window and onto the fire escape. The kid didn't see him. Most people aren't accustomed to checking the roof lines for other people. But here he was, looking out all around the surrounding windows and scanning the ground below. It took only a few seconds of observation to figure out what was going on. He was sneaking out. The kid looked to be about Zoo's age. Their hair was wild, fluffy, and lilac, and bags under their eyes suggested sleep was a foreign concept to them. Welp, looks like he's hunting down mysterious figures. Would have to wait. This kid was going to need an escort to whatever teenage nonsense they were getting into. It was a dangerous part of town, and until he figured out if this was a simple sneak out or an actual runaway attempt, it would be irresponsible of them to not keep an eye on him. Dare tracked them for several blocks. They didn't seem to be headed towards any particular direction. They bypassed train stations and convenience stores and kept changing directions at random intervals. Maybe they were just walking around to clear their head. Dare heard sounds of struggle from an alley nearby. At the same time the kid down below did, and to his shock and anxiety, instead of walking away or calling for help, the kid took off running in the direction of the fight. The tide purple cloud arrived in the alley a few seconds before Dare did. Due to his head start, a man with a knife and some sort of mutation quirk had backed a woman up against the wall. It sounded like an attempted robbery. When the man looked up and saw the boy with purple hair, he did his best to shoo him away. "Get out of here! This doesn't concern you." Dare hated to admit that he agreed with the criminal, but he was right. They had no business being here. The kid spoke with a monotone that made him seem almost bored of the scene in front of him. "Are you having fun?" "What?" The perpetrator's intense confusion was cut short, the whole body entering a relaxed but frozen posture, the face blank and eyes dull. The kid smirked a little and then walked closer, listing out the commands. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to drop the knife, turn yourself into the police, and forget you ever saw me." As if under hypnosis, the man seemed to do just that. Oh shit. This kid was the guy he was looking for, and so far, he looks to be on Team Vigilante. Once the man had exited the alley in his partial trance, the kid turned to the kid. Are you alright? I'm fine, thank you. The woman entered the same dazed state, and Darai held his breath. Depending on how he treats a victim, they were going to have one of two very different encounters after this. I'm glad you're alright. I'm going to walk you home. Tell me your address. The last part of his statement had that strange echo quality to it, as what he told the perp. Perhaps this was the actual brainwashing part. Darai wished Zu was here so he could give his 2 cents on how his quirk worked. The woman complied in giving her address. The boy pulled out a map from his pocket to try and find the best route. Either he doesn't have a phone or he didn't bring it with him. Darai followed both of them to make sure everyone found their way home safely. Once they reached the woman's address, the boy spoke to the woman again. Looks like this is your stop. This has been great. Forget you ever saw me. The kid pulled up the hood of his jacket to further obscure his face, bumped into the woman, and then took off running. Once the woman had been shoved, she seemed like she'd been jostled out of her state. By the time she gained cohesion of her surroundings, the kid was long gone. Interesting. Darai took out after the kid. The woman was home safe now. And while in the shock of suddenly being in a new place wasn't the greatest situation to leave her in, seeing someone like Darai wouldn't exactly put her at ease either. Continuing to monitor the teen seems to be more important at the moment. As he followed along, Darai tried his best to formulate a plan. He had to find a way to introduce himself without spooking them into using their quirk on him. If they made him forget about him, then he would be back to square one again. What was the least threatening way to approach someone who doesn't want to be seen? The decision was made for him. The sounds of another scuffle could be heard a few blocks down, and once again, both kids went running towards it, one on the ground and the other on the rooftops. This mugging seemed a bit more violent. It was 3 against 1, a barrage of kicks landing on a man curled in the fetal position on the ground. Hey, what the fuck you think you're doing? The kid yells as he ran onto the scene, but all 3 men ignored him. He grabbed the shoulders of the tallest man and tried to peel him away from the victim. I said, what do you think you're doing? The man answered him with a swift punch to the face. They fell back, hands reflectively moving to hold his bloody nose. Guess that means it was Darai's turn to step in. Darai jumped off the building. It was only 1 story high. His ankles gave a wet crunch sound from the impact, but he had worse landings going on to a fight. Ignoring the shifting of cartilage in his ankles, he charged towards the man that threw the punch, letting him land a punch on his left shoulder so he could use his right arm to grab the man's wrist. He twisted his body and pulled the man's arm into a position so he could toss him over his shoulder. The second man pulled out a knife, aiming to slash at Darai's neck. These villains weren't opposed to using lethal force, it seems. Good to know. That means Darai would feel less remorse about breaking a few of their bones. Darai blocked the man's knife with the meat of his bicep, swinging the arm into a large arc to force his attacker to let go of the knife. Using the momentum his arm swing created, he swung into a high kick, knocking the man's face into the body of the third man, making them both lose their balance. The first man had finally recovered and was standing up again. Darai took the knife he had won from the second man out of his arm and used it to feint at the first. He was hoping the man's instinct not to get cut would cause him to back up to where Darai wanted him. away from the bewildered kid, still clutching his nose on the ground. It worked. Now that he had a bit more room to work with, he could have some real fun. All three men were on their feet and taking swings at Dare. He baited them in, then ducked just in time to have two of their men lunge at each other instead of him. A move he had seen in one of Zoo's comics. I can't believe that worked, he said enthusiastically before he could help himself. He couldn't wait to tell Zoo about that later. He would get a real kick out of it. Meanwhile, his attacker seemed far less amused. A fist just barely passed his face with a little too much wind behind it for Dare's liking. Body shots he would take without complaints, but he wanted to avoid damage to his face in this fight. He still had to talk to the kid after this, and he'd less likely be cool about it when he saw his face morph in front of him. Besides which, he promised Zoo he wouldn't reset his face on purpose anymore. So keeping his facial structure at least sort of matching was suddenly a much higher importance. Dare managed to catch one of the arms and didn't hesitate to swing it harshly against his knee. The sound of snapping bone, followed by the perp falling to his knees in a scream, meant that he wasn't likely to get back up. So now there were two. Holy shit! He heard the teen curse under his breath. Maybe he should avoid breaking too many bones after all. It seemed like it bothered the kid and he didn't want to traumatize him too much, or worse yet, sour his opinion of him prematurely. Being a bit more careful in his takedown of the other two, he aimed for pressure points he knew would either disable limbs or knock out his opponents. 2 minutes after the fight began, it had ended. Two of the men were unconscious, their arms and legs zip-tied together to avoid making a run for when they woke. The third was still clutching his arm, whimpering. Dare approached him slowly, arms raised to show he meant no further harm. You want me to reset that for you? Otherwise the cops are liable to take you in, and it'll be another 48 hours before you get to see a doctor. Fuck you. The man spat venom at him. Literally. The sizzling spit was most likely the man's quirk. Dare sighed in resignation, but then an idea came to him. Hey kid. Dare addressed the wide-eyed and bloodied kid, slowly backing away from him, who froze at being addressed directly. Do me a favour and use your quirk on this guy so he lets me reset his arm. He'll never heal right otherwise. The boy's eyes went wide, a look of fear flashing behind his face. My quirk? Yeah, your mind control, or whatever it is. While you're at it, you should probably let me take a look at that nose too. His face took on a new look. One Dare knew all too well he was going to make a run for it. Hey, no, kid, don't. And he was gone. God damn it. Dare cursed. Then he turned back to the man with a broken arm. Alright, 2 options here. You let me help you, or I zip tie you as is and you face the consequences of your own actions in the form of a deformed arm. Fuck you. He repeated his earlier sentiment. Alright, but don't say I never offered. Dare ties him up. Much to the criminal's protest, checking on the original victims revealed that the man was unconscious but stable. Dare placed an anonymous call for both an ambulance and a paddy wagon. Then he picked up the set of daggers the man had been using earlier. He tested the weight and the swing of the blades for a moment, and decided he would be taking them. It wasn't really stealing if you got stabbed with it. Once your blood was on something, it at least partially belongs to you. Like kids licking a cupcake to claim them at parties. Besides which, Zoo had mentioned wanting a nice set of daggers, and these should do for now until he gets his own. As he ran from the scene, Dare contemplated if he should try to find the kid from earlier or not. He knew where he lived, assuming he would be returning to the same building he crawled out from earlier, so he could always return there another night and hope to catch him again, which might be for the best. He wouldn't want to overwhelm him on what was already a particularly eventful night for the junior vigilante. Deciding space was a good first step for the time being, Dare headed towards Dagobah to turn in for the night. He had his knives to clean anyway. Okay, that is the end of the first half. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I was realizing as I was saying that that's not Dagobah, because where the fuck is that? Dagoba Beach. You know where Dare lives. Why the fuck did I say Darbagonda? It's Dagoba. Fucking hell, I'm a moron. Anyway, hope you guys had a good time. I sure did. I have a new energy drink. Well, I've only tried it a few times, but the blue V's taste pretty good. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed, and make sure to take care of yourself, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.